Hi guys, back again for another video. This one might be very controversial to you. Then again, it probably won't, um, because you're very reflective, the audience I have anyway. Um, and probably like yourself, I'm always expanding my mind and my awareness. So I'm always kind of moving and changing. Like you look back, in the years past, and you don't always agree with your old self. You kind of change your mind about things. I think we're ever changing, um, as we come closer to the truth, or our own truths at the time, what resonates with us. So keeping that in mind, I think this is going to be a long video. Um, it's going to be an interesting one, hopefully, and it's on the topic of men and women. In that, I believe now that that women cannot survive without men in most um, ways, in most situations. Like I'm talking not just physically, but psychologically, and spiritually, if you want to add that. On the other hand, I'm starting to believe and see that men can survive without women, physically, psychologically, and spiritually. Um, this is just what I'm coming to see, and I'm willing to be wrong and change my mind if I, stumble across kind of more ideas and stuff like that. But this is what I'm seeing. This is really interesting. I was just kind of walking back from the gym, and I just all these thoughts in my head, just thinking, "Oh yeah, geez, God, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense." So let's begin. Let's like look at yin and yang, like you know opposites, right? Opposites attract, and you know, black and white, and masculine, feminine, male and female, man and woman, right? I used to, if you asked me like 5 years ago, even um, that, what do you think about balance within the male and female dynamics in, um, you know, men and women, and in the animal kingdom in general, actually? Like, how do you think it resonates in inequality, and is one better than the other? And I would say, like in this world we're in, neither are better than the other. You have to be in balance. You have to have an equilibrium. So men must be respected, women must be respected, men must be equal, women must be equal, and both must be just as potent as the other. So men must be just as potent masculinely, um, have their masculinity. They can't be emasculated at all, right? So they have to be strong and do their thing and protect the women, and women have to be, um, you know, super feminine, and they have to um, be just as much space and rights, freedoms all the time to do their thing. Otherwise, it's going to be like a um, a clash within the masculine. If there's going to be kind of some bad kind of like karma, like there's going to be some judgment. When you go against natural law, you face the judgment of the universe, right? So if you asked me back then, I would say if the masculine over if it tries to dominate the female, then it will fail because it's going against natural law. As in, if its clutches get too tight to the point where the female's freedom is significantly reduced, even to being subjugated to violence to a degree, then it all falls apart, and you know, it's not going to work. It's not going to survive. It's not going to thrive. That boat's going to sink. And vice versa. You know, if the females get out of hand, and you know, the men are being emasculated. But now I'm starting to see that it's not as black and white. It's more, in this reality, you need more yang than yin. And therefore, this is what I'm seeing anyway. Like, especially maybe with humans even more, because maybe we're not as strong physically as a lot of animals. We have to use our intelligence. And we have to not only do that, but we have to be psychologically tough to survive. And that takes a lot of tempering and a lot of time and a lot of energy to be tough in order to protect. So nurture is important, but I would say that being strong and tough is more important. It's like anything in within this reality, not just in humans. If you remove the male, the females don't survive. You know, the obvious one. If you remove obviously the male presence within a tribe of females, then the females won't survive. They'll either die out, most likely. Let's just talking the physical practicality here, or another tribe of males will come along and they'll wander, and they will take them under their wing, either peacefully or violently, breed with them. But so obviously you can see the physical kind of practicalities of the way we're designed. But I go further to say men really are the male energy, let's say, therefore men really are the dominant force within this reality field, that in what we call physical, this dense reality field, where it's harder to hack the matrix. It takes a lot of energy. Men are the dominating energy. Sorry, the male is the dominating energy force. Therefore, the male is the dominant one of this reality. Therefore, in the human world, men are the dominant sex and masters over this physical reality. They're the masters of it, and the pioneers and the movers, the shakers and the inventors and changers. More so, much more so. Without them, you won't have any women to speak about rights and freedoms and liberties and everything like that. You won't have anyone like to be able to do that. Talking of people who are movers and shakers, just look at Jack Parson and Aleister Crowley, and their knowledge of the male and female energy, and how they worked that with sex magic and everything to manifest, to hack this physical matrix. They were masters over it. But I would say that in this matrix, the male needs to be the dominant one. So balance, real balance, is imbalance, if you like. It is in the male force being dominant. Now, keeping that in mind, what came to my mind was Islam. I was thinking a lot on this with Islam. And it's going to be quite ironic, actually, I think, my thoughts on Islam right now. This is an example of how men can survive with men more. And men can survive with men, but women can't survive without men. If you look at Islam, it's obviously... I made notes here, so I'm kind of going through my notes as I talk to you, like I usually do. So anyway, looking at Islam, obviously it's very cohesive. It's very masculine in the fact that men they decide pretty much everything by the looks of it, but they the freedom that they allow for women is very restricting and crushing. It's out of balance in my books. It is. Um, I don't agree with a lot of it for sure, but I would say that it's what I'm seeing is tolerated within the natural spectrum of opposites. It's still in alignment with natural law, however crushing and restricting it is to the feminine. It is still within alignment of natural law, because the male is allowed to dominate the female within natural law and prosper. That when it comes to Islam, that boat, that ship isn't sinking, which is very interesting. I mean, obviously, it's not that old. It's only was it 1,000 years old or less? And so I will say also with Islam that it has, in its own way, it has nothing to lose and everything to gain. If you look at it, it's kind of like see it as this Abrahamic cult. What it is, it's a traveling cult that conquers and wars, and then picks up useful tidbits along the way. It seems to they say it kind of takes the technology and the philosophy, let's say, of its conquered and applies it as best it can, from its victims, and takes the women under its fold for breeding. One of the things I think some of the extremists were saying is it's in the wombs of our women that we will defeat you, which makes sense. Yeah, so it's this obvious cohesiveness that keeps it together and stops it from sinking. But at the same time, it obviously has its weak points, which are individuality, and I would say creativity as well. And I will say, I was just right now thinking, just on the top of my head, that restriction of the females and the feminine is probably dampening their creativity, and because it's restricting the women so they can't express themselves, but also within the men as well, it's possibly restricting their feminine, and we'll get a bit into that later, which is, I think, very interesting as well. So, but I would say it can only get better. It has the ability, and I bet it already has probably, is to take a few, let's say, pages from the Book of the West and apply it, and at the same time tear a few pages out of their book and destroy it. Anything that they feel now is negative, regressive, degenerate, because it certainly has that, doesn't it, with child brides and everything, and the extremist, their views on homosexuality and everything. And I mean, at the same, keeping that in mind, at the same time, they're obviously looking at the West right now and looking at what we're doing, sorry, not you and me, not the tribe, but just the West in general, right, with the whole transgender, gender fluid, man isn't a man, woman isn't a woman, and all of that. The way that the abortions and what they're teaching to children, for goodness sake, they're looking at that and going, my God, what a mess. This is to them, it's partly proof that how they're handling things, how the men are handling things, how they're treating their women, is just maybe a necessary evil. But at the same time, I do think that they're faced with, hang on, let's looking at that, we can really actually be the heroes here, not just through conquering and warring, but if we apply some of the freedoms in the West, if we admire certain things about the culture, maybe in the past, then we can actually incorporate that, and then it would do us good. So this is what I'm saying. It's because it's that ship has kept afloat, and it's very phallic and masculine. It has room to grow, and when I say feminize, I mean become more nurturing and become more freedom loving and sensitive. Without that getting out of hand. But the West, what we're seeing right now is complete downfall, complete destruction. There's no, collectively, there's no picking it back up. It is beyond the point of repair in my views. I'm just looking at my notes here when I'm talking to you. So I was just thinking that in the near future it could be, ironically, the Islam that actually rises up and actually defeats a lot of these injustices with all the transgender and everything with the school kids. But then again, it probably is maybe not for them. They'll be left alone. It's for white culture, to be dismantled, as we are seeing, as I just mentioned. It's really sad. So, and I've thought of an example of how men exist without women. And the obvious one that come to mind was the Shaolin monks in their Shaolin temple. And that's well over 1,000 years, I think. That culture still survives. From the Shaolin monks, the normal monks to the fighting monks, warrior monks, and soldiers and everything. The method that they lived under, they were celibate. There was no woman. They're not allowed to touch a woman or anything. And I always kind of wondered why. Why is it that these things are in place? I mean, I know it can, distract the mind and everything, sex and everything like that. But it's interesting. Why are most, in a lot of cultures, the wise, the spiritual, why are they men often? Why aren't there female head monks in Thailand? Why aren't there female monks in the Shaolin Temple? I'm not just talking about the fighting ones, but the non-fighting ones. Why aren't there females there? Why aren't there female philosophers philosophizing with men? It's very interesting. Alexander's army, the men, they lived their life just together, and even when it comes to sex, even there was a level of homosexuality there, so they become lovers as well. And I remember, Thomas Sheridan talking about that. And is it that they were just homosexual, or were they so submersed in the warrior culture, the conquering, the travelling, being together, the chanting, the moving, the cohesiveness, that they just, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but they just kind of, released their sexuality upon each other and just didn't think anything of it. I don't know. Something comes to mind, the samurai as well. They apparently they were lovers sometimes. The samurai warrior and the student that wants to be a warrior or something like that. Really strange but interesting. Cross-dressing. I don't know how old it is, but there's a link to androgyny that I'm going to get into. And have women ever done the same in history? Have they tried to deliberately kind of cross-dress and be a male and look like a male and draw themselves like a male with chest hair and moustache or whatever, beard? You got to wonder, has that been done, and did they think it was a good thing? And this comes right into the next kind of topic I want to move in within this is, well, I call it kind of the trans hermaphrodite, but I'm not talking what we're seeing now. I was just thinking of this when I was walking home, and how men and women are different, and how we assume that we're the same, as in that we have the ability to see things exactly the same and understand, and that's a kind of a foolish assumption to make. And coming from a male perspective here, even even if you're fairly deep, I don't know, I may be making the mistake, without meaning to be judgmental, that a woman will understand what I'm saying. They can see both sides of the coin, and they can look at both sides of the fence, and I'm beginning to think that that's not necessarily true. Maybe, this is a maybe, that it's only the human male, it's only men that can see both sides of the fence, and women can only see one. And the reason why I thought of this is, biologically, if I'm correct, men we are both male and female. And what I mean by that is, when we're in the womb, when we start to develop, when those cells start coming together, we're female. And it's only after a certain amount of time and weeks pass, I mean, I don't know the exact stages, if it's days or weeks or months, that nature decides to make us male. We transition from female to male. We go through that transition process, that transgender process. So we were female inside our mother, who is female. So two females together, sharing the same body, bonding, and then nature makes that choice to alter us, and then we're male, gives us that testosterone within the womb, and we become male. Nature chooses us for that journey, and looking into like psychology and the subconscious, and Michael Tsarion touches on this a lot. I mean, we don't know if this is fact, but on the concept of the soul, and when you can argue. I mean, we don't know when the soul incarnates into the developing child. Is it when the sperm and the egg meet, and then they start to exchange material and grow cells? Some say it's after a certain amount of weeks, then the soul enters. If so, does the soul enter in a male child before it's actually male? Is the consciousness, is the awareness there, is the observer there when it's actually female? If so, then according to Tsarion and the psychologists that he's studied, we have memories, going way back inside the womb of our mother, and this influences us. The state of mood she's in, the emotions she's feeling, etc., can have effect on us. It can be traumatic, or it can be healing, depending on what life she's living, what she puts in her body, etc. But this is interesting because if so, then the male subject, the man, has that memory of being female, and then actually transitioning into male, and then being born. And he's now altered. He has X and Y, but he does have that X chromosome, like a female does. And so, and has those tender years of nurture, and This is why I was thinking that um, it's natural, it makes sense as well on that level that men can understand women and a woman's needs because they can dip within their self and look at the feminine and the woman inside their self. And it makes sense on a practical level of husbandry and protection because it would help to know her state of mind and what she's thinking and more so what she's feeling. And keeping in mind, let's say the women are more feeling, they are intuitive that way, then you, as a man, you'd want to understand her psychology so that within a certain situation, you would tell her things that are best for her. You would give her what she needs, not necessarily what she's asking you. So, telling her the truth isn't always practical. So lying to her is practical because she can't handle the truth. Like food shortages, threat of a war coming from another clan. Is it really good to be straight down the line with her and throw your cards on the table like you would do to your friend, your brother? Probably not. You're just gonna have to say to her, "Oh, it's fine. We don't have food. We'll survive, and the food's all right. Actually, you just have to tell a few porky pies, right?" And it makes me think of somebody was saying regarding Donald Trump how he handled it much better with the threat of the Russians. Like unlike Biden, who was saying, "Oh, they've got nuclear weapons, they got nuclear this, they got nuclear that. Oh my God!" And he was saying, "I wish you wouldn't stop saying that word. Say it once, and then you just say something like, "Oh, weapons are much better anyway. We have more weapons, and we have better weapons, and we have more manpower, and we have more capable people that can apply these weapons. We're the best." That's what you should be saying, especially to a very feminized West and a very feminized America right now, because otherwise they just get scatty, like they're doing. So this is why I think that it makes more sense for a man to study psychology and female psychology than it does for a woman to do so. Study not only male psychology, but even look in their own psychology. But there's a connection here to men and the reason why they have this ability is because ultimately they are, both genders in one. We're like an altered woman. When you think of it, we're like a female that's been altered hormonally and energetically, and therefore spiritually, I guess. Just going over my notes, and I've probably said. Yeah, I think maybe women they could lack the extra dimension of the masculine to reflect. They can only know one thing because they are really only one thing, one energy. Men are two energies. They're the the masculine and the feminine. Now that could be wrong, kind of, because I just thought obviously women have they have that hormone in them as well, and so there could be a balance there. But look at the XY chromosome. They say even if a man has a sex change and everything, he's not still male because it's in his genes, it's in his DNA, right? So this is really getting interesting. Yeah, we are altered to be the enhanced master of this reality in all ways, I think. Yeah, so it's in her psychology to have an edge over women for husbandry, and that includes emotional husbandry, protection, etc. Looking at something physically, like even men, that we have nipples, don't we? It's proof that we're kind of like an altered female. And men this is interesting one. Men getting in touch with their female side. Now, in olden times, I think that this is essential and crucial to the rites of passage of being male, but it's not what you think it is. Probably the men getting in touch with their emotions now when they're not masculinized enough is the wrong way to go about it. You, as naturally, I believe, as a male, you are very, very strongly masculine. It's your armor, it's your energy, it's like your force field is you have more yin than yang, but you do have that yang, and so it's in these times where you could draw the feminine, draw the woman out of you. I'm serious. And it's massively empowering because you can understand women, and you can, that's saying what women want. They don't care what you want necessarily. They're not there to understand that. But you can know what they want because you have that side to you. So you can be capable of the most extreme acts of violence through war, genocide of warriors, but also children, and but then you can go home to your own. You can murder children in a war because there's through lack of resources. You can just turn that on and just see red. You can. It's frightening, the things that we're capable of. You can be the murderer, the rapist. You can commit atrocities. You can turn that on, and then you can turn that off, and then you can wipe the blood off your boots, go through a purification process, and then go and embrace your daughter and kiss her goodnight, because then you go and you draw the mother out of you and the feminine out of you. And as I say, we assume that both sexes can do that, but I don't know. It's like you don't know. You're never inside anyone but your own body, and you're only your own soul and your own consciousness. So it may be foolish to assume, from a male perspective. But if you're female and you're looking at this, maybe you're thinking vice versa, that we don't understand women. But there does seem to be this natural kind of hermaphrodite, if you want to call it, androgynous. They say that all great minds are androgynous. They're both a balance of male and female, and when you look at a lot of like great philosophers and everything like that, they do have that, and the great female philosophers, in the 1800s, they were very good, but they do come across as being quite masculine in their thinking and their energy, to me anyway. So I'm completely willing to be wrong here, but it just dawned on me. These ideas kind of flew into my head half today and yesterday. So we looked at mankind a bit. Looking at women here, womankind. This is how I don't believe that that women can live without men. Now, physically, we went through that. Men are stronger physically, and they're more practical and run faster, narrow hips, etc. They're not vulnerable at childbirth, etc., etc. But it's not just about that. It's psychologically as well. Men are wired to be psychologically dependent of woman, but women aren't psychologically wired to be dependent of man. This is what I'm coming to realise. Even if you had a kind of semi-natural kind of situation where something, like the Wicker Man, where you have a female-dominated matriarchal society, and then you have the men are just breeders, and they don't have much rights. Kind of like female version of Islam. You know, that film, you know, kind of come to mind, and you have that kind of like the random stranger, the horny stranger walks in, and they use him as a breeder and send him on his way or something like that, as a sperm donor. Kind of like what women do today, don't they? They like to do that with men, treat them like a cash machine and a sperm donor. But it doesn't work. They're the same way, and I believe this is just natural law. It's profane. Um, even if even if women, and this is a fact, can be physically strong enough to labour and farm, yeah, they can definitely, obviously, even to fight and be warriors, they can be physically as not as tough, but well, pretty much if they really put their mind to it. You know, if anybody puts their mind to it, they can be great. They can be great fighters, warriors, martial artists. You've seen it now. You know, women are athletic as well as men. They are capable, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's psychologically. They are not psychologically capable to keep that boat afloat and keep that surviving. It will sink. So even if they're physically able to survive, they're not mentally. Madness, I believe, will set in. You know, hysteria, mass hysteria, psychosis, and things like that. And which is, I believe, is what we're seeing now in the Western society. It's completely collapsing. So you will see, I believe, as we're seeing, even though that, let's say you can have, you know, a tribe of women who are physically capable, they will consciously reject the male and subconsciously crave him, and they will, I would say, reject the male of their own race more than anything, because they feel abandoned and they feel let down. So and they, at the same time as yeah, so they will long to be saved, but never admit it. They will hate. It will be expressed as hate. As Michael Desarin pointed out, one of his way of describing it is that they will identify with the object of their hate, and that's why they will try and masculinize themselves and put that armor on, because they will, to a level, obviously admire it and need it and want it, but at the same time, you know, they will. It was a very toxic kind of state of mind. And eventually self-destruction. This is the interesting thing. You know, you cannot have a female version of Islam. It won't survive. Sadly. Yeah. So even if we have, as we're living in now, even if science can keep that physically, keep that ship afloat, it's going to sink anyway with just a matriarchal society. Maybe all matriarchal societies are absolutely doomed. They can't exist. You know, it's just the brass on the Titanic's going to sink. This is my thoughts right now. Lots of films have kind of expressed this. You have one that comes to mind is Zardos, which I've just been watching recently. It's actually got Sean Connery in it. I'm gonna make another video on Zardos specifically, directly connecting to this video. But I'll talk about it in short. It's basically set in the future where you have this utopia, which is really like a dystopia, and it's kind of, it appears to be a matriarchal kind of female-dominated utopia where science has enabled them to live a very long time, or nearly forever. They kind of clone themselves and transfer their consciousness into the next body, something like that, and therefore reproduction is no longer needed. So the men are impotent and they can't reproduce, and you can see the kind of dystopia taking place when basically. Because at the same time when this is going on, you have the character Sean Connery, who is part of a cult that is led by a rebel within this dystopia, who's Um, oh no, he's probably all part of it. He's probably part of it. Actually, what he was doing was he was having the savages, which were the normal human beings that weren't part of this dystopia of theirs. They were having them make crops and wheat and stuff and farm as slaves. So they did that, and they created like a alpha cult of males to keep them in check and cull them actually when they got too numerous. So they would go and shoot them. And this god, I think it was called Zardos. It was like the floating head. But what he would do is he would say it's to these alphas that they're chosen and they're ordered to kill and stop the infidels from multiplying and let them, keep them making the harvest and the wheat and everything. And Sean Connery is one of them. He's starts off ignorant, so he's very much kind of like a very Islamic type of kind of alpha male cult religion. Is religion this Zardos scientist has set up, and he's kind of masquerading as this floating kind of face. So he's very much like Allah or Yahweh of the Bible, and he kind of, the guns fall out magically out of the ship, and then you can kind of get the picture. But the Sean Connery character, he's very much like the Muslim extremist, because he lives for the thrill of the hunt, to conquer his enemies, the infidel, and then he rapes the women, and he does that for his god Zardos and for his pleasure. And it's really interesting because when he stumbles, he shoots his god. He enters the floating head ship, and he sees a man, and he shoots him, and realizes he's shot. Later on, he's shot his god. But that's the beginning of his initiation into, wisdom, finding out how he had been misled. And really, this character, this savage, this rapist, this raper of women and killer. This soldier is innocent because he has been part of a cult and he had nothing else to compare with. It's one way of looking at it. He had that's all he knew. He was raised, since he was a child, by the looks of it, to be that. But he, out of curiosity, he stumbles upon the world of these scientists, and he's like he's much needed to the anger, horror, and disgust of these matriarchal kind of females, these fake alphas. As soon as he enters their bubble, it's chaos to them, but he just arouses them in every single way, and then he's the one that could, and he becomes smarter, and he realizes, and then he saves the day. It's the masculine that basically helps save that dystopia, in the trying to kind of shorten it as quick, as much as I can. That's interesting. That's a good one. The Wicker Man, as I mentioned, you have a Brave New World, where you have people don't reproduce, do they? And they're very much there's something obviously very wrong with that system. It's not just when I say women, it's feminized men as well. It's just this feminized culture, that I'm addressing as well. Time Machine, where you have the simpletons, and I can't remember what they were called. They lose all will and ability. They just they don't think of anything. They have no passion, because everything's provided by them, by this invisible kind of big brother, and all the men are feminized, and they have no drive and get up and go, and there's no future for them. You can see they're going to die off, right? Something comes to mind is Fight Club as well. It's about the individual regaining his masculinity and realize that the world that he's in is sinking. Another interesting thing that I thought of was looking at in the West the family unit, right, and divorces. I'd say this is from what I've researched. from around, and it makes sense as when I think about it, from around say 0 to 5 to 8, I would say the child, the boy, is more dependent on his mother. He needs his mother more, almost all the time, completely. Those years are crucial. And then around about 8 to maybe 10, 11, kind of early puberty maybe, it's the father that takes a son, and he teaches them how to be a man. He teaches them about masculinity and rites of passage. But it's interesting how Western women often, they want that divorce around about that same time, when the father is his time to actually teach the son how to become a man. Just another observation how they would, want to push the father out at that time. I don't even think it's a conscious thing. I think these types of women are subconsciously driven. You can argue that yes, it's certainly social programming. It was something done, up in the 80s. You could say, the horrid soap dramas and everything, and feminism and everything like that. But I think it was at the same time a natural process taking place of the death of the West due to the lack of the masculine. Another thing I thought of, and I forgot to mention, was World War One, when you had a whole generation of working class men destroyed and killed. That could be one of the first major blows, to the psychic field within the West, when it comes to the balance of male and female. With the male absent, it would have been the perfect time for the powers to move into the feminist agenda, to start planting the seeds of ideas in these women. Obviously, physically, when the men are removed, so they can't tell them otherwise. But also psychically, they're vulnerable now, because without the male present, and without the male energy, you have this matriarchal energy, or the potential for it. And then, all these ideas of women working, equal pay and all of this, and the drugs, and the free sex. And then you had all of the degeneration of the West kind of came from there. And it's gotten out of hand so much now. So much. Just another thing, going back to the role of the mother from birth, to about 8 years old. So she is looking at psychology and and symbolism. She is the solar world of the boy. So from the womb, when he's female, and then when he transitions into male inside the womb and he's born, her job, according to Tessarian and the psychologists and philosophers he studied, it's the mother's job to nurture and shelter the boy away from the solar world, the masculine world, and let those rays of the solar gently filter through. Like, imagine like a well treed forest, with plenty of shelter. But naturally, those rays of light are gonna come through, as beams. They're gonna filter through the trees. So her job is like the forest, the lunar forest, and then the solar is going to gently filter through. And because she's nurturing and protecting and loving, he is going to want to reach out for the solar and go, I'm curious about that, and I want to get hold of it. And she's to obviously not discourage that. She's there to let that be. And so something as simple as you have a boy and a girl. The girl falls down and scuffs her knee, and the mother picks her up immediately and hugs her. There, it's okay, mum's here. Then the boy does the same, and she picks him up and says, "Stand up and stop being such a crybaby. Otherwise, I'll tell Daddy you're such a crybaby. Big boys don't cry." You see, and then that could be enough. That's that psychological kink in the armor that will is destroying his relationship with the solar world, because the solar world is the masculine, or the physical is getting knocked down. You've got to get back up. But she should have picked him up and nurtured him, just like the daughter. There should be no difference. It's the father that will do that later. But if he's traumatized, then he's not going to want to embrace the solar world. And this is the bad parenting that we're seeing in the West, especially maybe in Britain. I've heard people talk about the way that a lot of women treat their sons. This is how another example of how men have been set up to failure by the toxic mother. So I just want to say, I'm not blaming those of the tribe or anything like that. I don't mind having a dig at men as well, but I think this is important. This is some really interesting stuff. And so I'm 100% certain, nearly, that I'm witnessing the complete destruction of the West by the female now. Now the male is completely removed, the white male, let's say, or certainly subjugated, or very, very is a very minor influence, let's say. I don't know. The abortions is the toxic female wanting to just destroy her offspring now. That's consciously they're prattling on about their rights and their bodies, but they actually want to kill their children now. They want to murder them, and that's what they're doing, and they're letting the world know subconsciously that they're absolutely insane, and they're killing. They want to destroy, and they want to take down absolutely everything. I'm not talking about all women or most women. These example that we're seeing in the psychic weather within society, right? They're not. So it's beyond raising your child and then wanting to castrate your boy and put him on hormone blockers and stuff like that, and their daughters as well. But my feelings are, it's mainly aimed at the hate is mainly aimed at the boys from these mothers, because they consciously they want to kill the male. They want to finish everything off. They want to bring basically an end to their generation and regeneration. The death instinct mode has taken over them now, because the male isn't present. They're possessed with it. Total regression and death drive, I think, is what we're witnessing from the vaccines to destroy the children, to the transgender, and even to the paedophile agenda that they're putting their kids through. That's what they're doing. It's absolutely, they're actually complete 100% self-destruction mode. The Thanatos instinct, death instinct that Freud talks about, and Desarian. That's what they're being driven to in their self and in their children. Desarian talks about necrophilia like this, the obsession and the love of death. So these types are the Thanatos, death instinct, obsessed, necrophiliac, pedophile embracing culture. That's what they want. It's frightening, isn't it? But just observing it, I can understand why, I think. Very, very interesting. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I've left out. Yeah, so you can see this destructiveness on the collective scale, but you can also observe it within the family unit as well. In the in the micro and in the macro as well, macro, micro, whatever. I have observed it, twice within, in my childhood, the destructiveness of women, and how It is unconsciously driven. They don't know what they're doing, but they're doing it, and it reeks of the death throes of the West. You know, this is just what happens. This is natural law. If you're profane, this is what you get. The destruction of the house, you know, the family. You've gone from that to, you know, transgender, neutering your children, to, you know, killing them in the womb, etc. It's pretty dark, but the irony, I thought, as much as I dislike Islam and as much as it angers me, it's far more in alignment, I believe, with natural law than what the West is right now, and that's why it's going to fall. And you know, the tribe will survive, I hope. Anyway, that's been a long video, and I hope I've covered everything. And if you watched it, thanks for listening, and I hope you found it interesting and thought-provoking. And yeah, just leave a comment if you like. Okay, guys, I'll see you later. Take care.